All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and get started. The nice part about appropriations committees is there is no quorum requirement for this committee. So we now have two members of the committee here, and we have the committee staff, and we have those who are going to present. So we will begin this process right now. Let me make sure All right, first thing we're going to, okay, there comes Representative Yates. If somebody will pull that door closed so the noise in the hall doesn't, thank you. All right, well, okay, hold on. We got some committee members coming in. I will wait a minute then. All right, we have 5 of us. That's good enough. We have the chairman of higher education as well, so that helps. Glad to have you. All right. Members of the committee, here's what I'm going to suggest we do today. If you'll remember, task Vice Chairman Chokas with doing some research with respect to the 1% loan program. It came to my attention that there were 2 other programs under that. One was just the normal 1% loan program. The governor's office had recommended a $20 million outlay for that. There were 2 others, the Finish in 4 initiative and the Public Service Initiative, and I think we can create some incentives. I'm going to ask Mr. Tim Cannell of the Georgia Student Finance. They've done some really good work on this, and he's available. I'll turn his microphone on here. You can do it from right there if you don't mind, if you want to. But let me give Chairman Chokas just a minute to explain some of the things he's found, and then we can talk about it, maybe any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we found that these 2 programs, the Graduate on Time and the Public Service Program, had not been activated, even though they were started back in 2008, but needed funding of $500,000. And we have the $20 million in lottery funds for these programs available, and I think we're short about $800,000 and some change for these 2 programs. And so Mr. Cannell and I met, and I think he's found a solution. So with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Cannell. Thank you.
Push that button, would you, Tim? And tell me which. Now your mic is on.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the committee. In fact, we did meet with Representative Chokas last Thursday, following the chairman's direction and expression of interest in both the Graduate on Time as well as the public service component of the 2008 legislation. As noted, only the 1% student access loan program has in fact been activated to this point with the $20 million worth of lottery appropriation. And so we met with Representative Chokas to kind of look at what possibilities may there be around to try to fund those other 2 programs as well. And as part of the conversation and during the conversation, I think it became clear to us that perhaps there is a solution path to that, whereby we can, in fact, if we were willing to have the programs established in rule versus following the statute, we could combine all 3 programs into one. Just to tell you very quickly, the Graduate on Time program is intended to provide a financial incentive to students to graduate in 4 years. As you may recall from our previous conversation, students are typically taking 6 years to complete a baccalaureate these days, and it's certainly in the state's best interest to try to encourage students to complete in 4 versus 6. The public service provisions program is intended to encourage individuals to pursue a career in public service, whether either at the state or the local level, the way the statute is written. So as part of the discussions that we had with the chairman and Representative Chokas, came up with the idea that perhaps we can actually incorporate all those 3 public policy objectives within a single program. So for example, a student could get a 1% loan as they currently are from us into this program, and if they graduate in 4 years, their interest rate, which they're currently as a 1%, would remain at 1% for the term of the loan. But if they didn't graduate in 4 years, and for example, if they took 5 years to graduate, then we had actually increased the interest rate on the loan to create the financial incentive for the student to actually complete in 4 years versus 5 years or more. And so if they took 6 years to graduate, we would have a further escalation in the interest rate, again, to provide a significant enough financial incentive for someone to want to graduate in 4 years. Similarly, with the same loan program, we could make that loan at 1%, and if a student then graduates and goes into public service. For every year that they work in public service after graduation, a portion of their loan, equal to the amount of interest that they would have paid, would be written off the principal to reduce the outstanding principal balance. So over the term of years, as they repay the loan in combination with the service credit they would get, it would work much like the service countable loans that we have historically done in the past. And so by so doing, we'd have one program, one set of program guidelines, one program to market. It would be far simpler, of course, to market a program to students and schools under one program guise with these different features than three different and somewhat competing programs. And also there is a desire to try to go out into the corporate sector and do some fundraising for corporation to donate to these programs. Certainly, again, it would be, I think, far simpler for us to try to market a single program to the corporate sector and explain how it works, as opposed to three different programs with somewhat different program provisions.
Super.
Thank you, Commissioner Cannell. I appreciate that, the work. I certainly appreciate the Vice Chairman Chokas having looked into this. Members of the committee, any questions on this? Anybody have any comments? I think what they've found is something that's a win-win for everyone. It doesn't change. We don't need to appropriate any more money for this. We just, if my understanding is correct, we can just add some approach language to this that allows that type of flexibility that Mr. Cannell is talking about, but creates some really nice incentives. And there's some cost incentives for the system itself that will benefit if they finish in 4. The same students still have the same access to the 1% loan, same amount of money is there. We've just taken advantage of the ability to have these students participate in either the public service or the finish in 4 or the standard contract. So I think what I'd like to do eventually, I will probably suggest such language to you, but just continue to take a look at this. If anybody has any questions, we'll continue before we finally vote this out of committee.
I'd like to comment. Okay. Tim, could you also speak to the raising of the money from foundations and donations? Could you speak to that, please?
Yes, sir. The program has been, the legislation passed in 2009, and since then, we have collected money from individual contributions to the programs and placed them into the individual program accounts. They're also beginning in 2009, the legislation authorized that a checkoff be used on the state of Georgia income tax return to enable individuals to make a contribution to those programs through a checkoff system on their tax return. And over the last 3 years, we have collected through the checkoff system a little over $110,000. And is through individual contributions around $57,000 over that same period.
It can't be used right now, correct?
Pardon me?
At this current time, it's not. You can't access it because it hasn't met that $500,000 threshold.
That's correct. The statute provides that the programs aren't activated until each individual balance is at least at $500,000.
But if we combine the programs, then you'll be able to have that access.
That's correct.
That's what I'm trying to get to. Seems like a good idea to me. You guys shoot any holes in it, you're welcome to. Sometimes things actually work out. All right. I don't see any further questions. Mr. Cannell, thank you very much, guys. All right. Scott, who did we tell that could go next? Ms. Taya Ryan with Georgia Public Broadcasting. I think she has 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of some videos that we always enjoy, those videos that she has. Anybody that's watching the hours and hours of program of Friday night high school football in the state of Georgia has Ms. Ryan to thank as well. That's great programming. I recommend it to anybody. It's good stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here again. It's always fun, and we do come with entertainment, so that's the good thing about having us at your committee meetings. You know, I do want to show several videos because I think they're very representative of the way we've been going and how we're thinking at GPB. You know, we certainly, we could get up here and do, as I've heard others, talk about the cuts we've sustained over the last few years, and indeed we have. And we are learning to deal with it like everyone else, and it is not easy. But we are making do. I think that the most important thing for me to help give you an idea of what our last year is like is to give you some comparisons. Mr. Chairman, I stood up here last year and I told you that in our digital education service, which is the main focus of our company, we had 77,000 of the 116,000 K through 12 teachers use our material in their classrooms the year before. during the school year. Well, this year, I'm happy to report that that number has moved up to 83,000. This is becoming a major force in Georgia education, and we're right at the heart of it. And those 83,000 teachers downloaded material, whether it was lesson plans, videos, pictures, sound effects, 5 million times. Now, that's just a stunning number. I have to be honest, it surprised all of us to have that much, and it's very likely that this school year we will exceed that number. You know, we're still in the middle of the school year, but we're certainly on track to succeed with that, far more than even 5 million. And just to give you some idea, this is the range of subjects. This is English, this is science, health, mathematics, career and workplace skills. It's just about everything. And I think when I came here 2 years ago to talk to you for the first time, I said my goal was that the focus for GPB is we're not teachers, we don't stand in the classroom, that's not our forte. What we can bring to the table essentially is to be the digital educator, and I think we're a long way towards realizing that goal, and I'm very proud of it. Something new this year that is also very important is our involvement with the Common Core and launching the Common Core curriculum with the superintendent. We will have done by the end of the year 70 sessions laying out Common Core standards for the teachers of Georgia. Now, these are sessions where they're live in our studios and they're presentations that all the teachers in Georgia must attend. There was no financially reasonable way to reach all of those teachers except to access through our system, and we willingly and gratefully extended ourselves to be able to do that. So think about that, 70 of these programs, sessions, and so far 35,000 unique visitors to the Common Core material that we have up. And very important, and you know how passionate I feel about this because I'm always carrying around some electronic something. Right now we have an old-fashioned computer with us today, so we still find room for those in our world. But all of those Common Core standards, also not only could they see them on the computer, we sent them to the iPhone, iPad, iTouch, Android, whatever device you have, whatever device those teachers wanted to watch this on, we could deliver it to. That is an exciting milestone for us because what we were building towards, the way we were using and directing our resources, and our precious resources, I must say, clearly have been of use to the state, and we have now even saved the state money. I also came to you last year and I held up this textbook, which is the 8th grade history textbook that the majority of Georgia students use to study their state's history. And I said, I want to create the first digital history textbook ever. Well, we didn't do it. We didn't get that far this year. We didn't quite have the resources to do that. But here's what we did do. First of all, we did buy the rights to all the material of this book. And that's a good beginning. The second thing we did towards the end of working towards this project is that we partnered with the Georgia Historical Society and with a grant, a very generous grant from the Woodruff Foundation. We started a series called Today in Georgia History, and I'm not sure if you have seen it, but I can tell you that by the end of the first year of this project, based on the numbers that we're getting now of who has seen these segments on radio and television, more than 23 million impressions will be had of this program. That is an astounding number. They are little 90-second programs that air on radio and television as well as on the web. And so far, we started, our first year is in September. So far, 400,000 downloads of these segments on our website. So let me show you one segment. I hope both of you can sort of see here. Oh, you have monitored. Oh, how very modern.
I'm Stan Deaton with the Georgia Historical Society. On this day in 1895, President Grover Cleveland threw an electric switch at his Massachusetts home and officially opened the Atlanta Cotton States and International Exposition. Civic leaders wanted to promote Georgia's economic development and showcase Atlanta as the resurgent heart of the New South. 800,000 people visited the 6,000 exhibits. They saw the Liberty Bell and celebrities like Buffalo Bill and March King John Philip Sousa, who wrote the King Cotton March especially for the occasion. On opening day, Booker T. Washington delivered his controversial Atlanta Compromise speech. He urged fellow African Americans to stop agitating for social and political equality and focus instead on economic opportunities. White listeners gave him a standing ovation, but W.E.B. Du Bois and other black leaders denounced Washington for submitting to segregation and inequality. Washington's speech was a key moment in civil rights history. The site of the exposition is now Piedmont Park, designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, a vibrant part of Atlanta and a silent witness to the New South's growing pains on September 18, 1895, today in Georgia history.
Today in Georgia History is made possible by the generous support from the Robert W. Woodruff Foundation and as a joint production of the Georgia Historical Society and Georgia Public.
We actually have made almost this many by now. But the first year, we started September 1st, so our first year will end August 31st. We made 366 of these leap year. That's why it's not 365. We hope to keep them going. That is our goal. But remember, this material is now digitized. It can be used throughout the educational school systems. We will continue to air it, and it is going to become part of our digital textbook. And we have not given up on that. As a matter of fact, we have taken the step in the last few months, and we are designing, Mr. Chairman, the first 2 chapters of this book digitally so that we can show folks how we're going to do it. And I dare say the most interesting thing about that is that this book ends in 2004. Well, I don't think Georgia history ends in 2004, but we have to go and reprint these books at great cost when we want to bring them up to date. Our goal is that never has to happen again. We have a digital textbook that just keeps going, and you can renew and renew, and it gets more depth and more depth. And this is the kind of quality that I'm looking forward to putting into that textbook. So ongoing project, ongoing goals, ongoing vision, and all within our area of expertise, which is the digital area. Why did we take the step of trying to do this on our own? Well, because we proved something to ourselves this year. And that's because we did the first high school football app on iTunes. In-house, we developed the Georgia High School football app. You can go onto it. It's just, you can get onto it through gpb.org or on the iTunes App Store. We did it because we have a dedicated group. You know that we have been building up our relationship with the different schools and the different clubs with regard to our interest in high school sports. We think that is part of our mission as public media. Well, I have a very enterprising group of people that I work with, and they took it upon themselves to go to what they called nerd school this year. So we sent them to nerd school, and what they came back with was a gift for Georgia. They came back and, as I say, the first high school app. What does it give you? It gives you scores. It tells you where all the schools are at. Gives you the players, the coaches, all kinds of information. Now, the most interesting thing is that when you send your design for an app into Apple, they usually send it back and have you do changes because it's hard to get it right, certainly if you're a new application writer. Well, my folks, there were no changes. It went up almost immediately. It is now in the top 50 downloads of sports apps in the country. A Georgia high school app. Surprised the heck out of us. Now, right now, I must say, we ebb and flow. It's not football season, so our numbers are a little lower, but during football season, we did great, including that a lot of people at the games, you'd see the kids with their iPhones and they were on the app watching the game while they were at the game. So we had them every which way they were coming. So we have a lot of confidence in ourselves that we can transfer that knowledge, that how you do the guts and the basics of how you do a digital textbook, and now we have access to the material. This is not a small thing, this football app, because it was all part of a bigger project. You know that this year we launched Football Fridays, very unusual that we could do this. We took a big plunge. We had been doing the finals every year, and they have been so successful. May I remind you that we are the highest rated PBS station in the country during the weekend when we air high school football. It is a wonderful outlet. Well, this year we eked by and we found the resources to do football every Friday night. 2 games across the state, one on the web. In fact, Sean right here did the web games. And also the television. Those were our big games. Why did I think football was so important? Not just because we all love football. We do all love football. And nobody loves football more than Georgians. I mean, that's just clear. But we did it because there are other things that are within football that are so important to our community. The games are ways to bring communities together. The games are ways to keep kids in school. The games are a way to make sure we're talking academically to these kids. The games are a way for kids to learn how to interrelate. Football is not just the game, it's about community life, and GPB belongs at the heart of community life in Georgia. And so the games are very important to us. We put a lot of energy into it. Often on Friday night, we were the highest rated network in the state based on our high school ratings in the metro area. More than 2.5 million Georgians watched football season on GPB this past year. The numbers were extraordinary. We started with the Corky Kell game and went right through the finals. So we start in August and right through the finals. And we did something new this year that I want to show you. Again, when I talk about community, I really mean it. We really put a lot into what we do with these games because we have an audience that often doesn't come to us. It's a different audience. So let's take advantage of that audience and let's highlight what's good about our schools. Let's highlight the way they achieve. So I want to show you a sample of what the kind of programming that aired at the very beginning of every game every Friday night. Obviously there were different schools highlighted, but this is what it looked like.
They came to find gold in Springville, but found little off Brownsville Road. But the 7 springs that fed the city contained minerals that turned the land black as gunpowder. And in 1859, the town's name changed to Powder Springs. On land that was donated by life insurance mogul John Newton McEachern, a school was built in 1908, which became the largest school in Cobb County for a time. That is until upstart schools like Hillgrove High School came along to lighten the school's load. From its 2006 beginnings, the Hawks have been positioning themselves to be a force in football. And this year, with an undefeated record, they hope to go all the way. But first, they have to get by the McEachern Indians, also undefeated, at home in the biggest stadium in the state. Tonight, it's the Hillgrove Hawks versus the McEachern Indians. Live from McEachern High School, for whom the bell tolls on Football Fridays in Georgia.
Time to play some football.
That's a championship team right there.
It's a hot time tonight.
Tip my hat. Well, in all honesty, we did every school that played. We did.
Right.
I have to respectfully request that you get new speakers in this room, though, Mr. Speaker. So if we're going to continue to show you great videos,
We're going to spend the money for speakers on your department.
But this was a sample, and this kind of sensibility you would find all through halftime where we interviewed the principals, where we interviewed the teachers, where we interviewed coaches, as well as the students. So high school football is not just high school football to GPB. It again more video that I want to show you that we launched right around the middle of football season this year that was so important. It was a public service campaign that we decided to start all on our own. Let me show it to you and then we'll talk about it. These aired all through high school football, all through the season, mostly in halftime.
Meet John. John has decided to drop out of school, but what he didn't realize is that now this door will be closed to him. And this one too. Well, you get the idea.
That's what we do with education, and I know that we're here to talk about education, but I want to mention one more connection and one more importance about GPB. We know, and we've been hearing all year about the connection between high school and college and jobs. We know, we're all aware of that direct connection. We need an educated workforce so that we have a healthy economy. And so we also look at our position, as you've seen, to help educate the kids in Georgia. But we also believe that GPB should be a part of a healthy economic environment. So I want to give you a quote from the Booth Museum in Cartersville. We aired Georgia Traveler a couple Fridays ago. We aired on Fridays. That's our casual, very entertaining travel series that we do. But underneath it all, it is far more than that. We aired this, we did a segment on the Booth Museum, the Western Art Museum in Cartersville. It's a beautiful place. This is what the museum director wrote to us on Monday morning. We've already seen our museum visitor traffic increase. Half of all our visitors this weekend say they came because they saw the segment on Georgia Travel. Our website traffic jumped this weekend 84%, and visitation was up 50%. So wherever we go, whether we're out at a game, football, whether we're highlighting a restaurant, a museum, a seashore, a mountain retreat, those cash registers ring in those communities because we've talked about it. And that's what you help fund. You help fund the distribution system that makes all of this possible. But know that there are true ramifications and all very positive towards this distribution system that you fund. There are so many ways that we're using it now, from helping kids stay in school to educating kids with, in a digital textbook, as well as bringing people into our businesses across Georgia. GPB has a vital place to play in our lives, I believe. So look back in the past year, 50,000 more teacher down, 500,000 more teacher downloads of our material and educational content, 365 episodes of Today in Georgia History, 74 curriculum sessions that we will produce. We're actively seeking to continue our digital textbook, 35 high school football games produced, and now we've developed a robust public service campaign, and we're driving business. I'm tired. It was a good year. I'm really proud of the people I work with. I hope you're proud of everything that we've achieved. Thank you so much.
Director Ryan, I personally am proud of everything you do. And ladies and gentlemen, we fund this agency on baling wire and twine and bubble gum. Just FYI, what they do with the resources they have, and if you've ever been over there, they make, I think they still have computers that you have to load with 2 discs in this place. It's an amazing thing, and I do appreciate the McEachin Hillgrove football game. But I think everybody's benefited. If you haven't seen that Booth History Museum in Carterville, it's a Smithsonian quality certified level museum. They actually have an exhibit upstairs with something from every president that's signed, and it's worth seeing. It's fast. It's Western history as well, but it has a lot of other things. It's a fascinating place. That's not my district. I've just been there. It's worth seeing. So, members of the committee, are there any questions? Let me ask you this. I know that you have a need for is it a digital traveling van that does these types of.
It's essentially something, a system that gives us a backup system to our entire broadcast system. It's a mobile device. Right now, we do not have backup. When we go off the air, because GPD was not built as many broadcast systems are, where there's a concurrent backup. So we are looking at the options of creating those backup systems, as well as then that backup system would have the ability to do more broadcasting throughout the state on a mobile basis.
Okay, thank you. That was where members of the committee. Any questions for the director? Well, thank you very much. Very, very compelling presentation. Thank you. All right, next is going to be the library system, Mr. LeVar Veach. And members of the committee, you have in front of you, I asked the libraries, as you know, there hasn't, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, there are no recommendations for full-fledged facilities for libraries in this year's budget recommendation, and quite frankly, it doesn't look like there was a great deal of appetite at some of the other levels of this decision-making process to do that. But I asked the library system to take a look at what could they do on the MR&R side of the equation, and how many of the libraries in the state could they actually affect for some maintenance and repairs to take care of what we do have an investment in Georgia. And that's where Director Veach is going to talk to you, and whatever else. So, Mr. Veach.
I'm not sure how I can really compete with what we just saw.
Pretty good.
That's pretty that's pretty whiz bang, and we're so impressed with that sister organization and the things that they're doing. But I think there's a companion piece here with the public libraries. There are 400 community public libraries in the state of Georgia in those 61 library systems that serve individual needs as those people walk in or dial in or log in to the library. Programs on workforce development and employer and career services, economic development services on an individual basis, individual early childhood and family literacy programs, education and support, pre-K, lifelong learning, individualized is the brand that the libraries can bring, and access to e-government services. The more e-government, the more state government, the federal government provide online services, the more that those local individualized public libraries with their computer services, with their network services, really are core foundational programs in those individuals' communities, so that people access the individual information that they need at the time that they need it. In 2011, there was a total circulation still of library books and other kinds of electronic media, 45,700,000 in Georgia. 34.6 million patrons walked into Georgia's public libraries this past year. So people are voting with their feet. They're letting us know that public libraries are important, changing places. They're not just for books, even though books are our bread and butter and staple. Many of the libraries now have figured out ways of tweaking their budgets and getting materials, downloadable audio, downloadable e-reader books for all the different at this point for public libraries, and that is appreciated. There's some additional funding in the budget request for our new directions formula, which is based on increasing state population. So with that additional money, we'll go through our formula out to the public libraries that have seen additional increases in their population over the last year or so. So that is certainly appreciated, as well as the additional state share of health insurance and teachers' retirement, which we assist. As you know, this state funding provides support for about 300 professional public librarians throughout the state. These are the people who provide the service. These are the people who plan the service. These are the folks who keep those doors open in those individual communities. And that, again, is still very important. Let me be brief here with the repair and renovation needs. You had some conversations, Mr. Chairman, with some library directors. This topic came up, so we appreciate the opportunity to share this with you as an example of the kinds of just basic repair and renovation needs that are out there among our public libraries. This was a quick survey of existing needs and some pretty solid estimates about what these would cost should they be funded. But it really gives you a picture of what the MR&R needs are for our public libraries in these communities. The state has built quite a few, helped build quite a few, and this is a partnership approach program. And this is
Just like
this
your
list you have here is based on a similar 2007 program that helped put a lot of projects in place out there around the state.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think you've gotten responses from most of your systems that have true needs with respect to this?
We do. I mean, if we ask again, there would be additional ones, but there may be some additional ones. But I think this is the major coverage of those needs, particularly those building envelope issues that are really critical to making sure that the buildings are weathertight and the roofs are good and they're structural, and we've addressed structural issues.
It strikes me it's a lot of immediate jobs in a lot of places in Georgia on all these roofing pieces and a lot of other things. HVAC, roofers, a little bit of everybody in here. Any questions from members of the committee, Mr. Veach? No, Chairman, let me turn your mic on. I'm sorry, Chairman. Yep.
Question I have, and just out of not knowing all the inner workings of a library, we have 400 public libraries, you said, correct?
Yes, sir.
What do people pay now to join a library? Is there a fee statewide? Is everything still free?
Yes, it's generally free. There are some, especially in the Times program,
Right.
which covers about 90% of the state. Some individual libraries will charge an out-of-city or out-of-county resident fee. But most of the libraries in the state do not. I think as part of policies for the statewide and state support.
Okay. Further question, Mr. Chairman, if I may. As far as the only thing, when you charge, you still charge for fines if someone, is that a statewide standard? Is that up to every system?
That's pretty much a statewide standard. Again, those libraries that participate in that statewide Times program,
Right.
which covers most of the libraries, there's a steering committee of those libraries that set policies. And so they set that policy, and our agency helps implement that.
Okay. If I went into a library to join, all I do is fill out a form, or your staff would? Okay. And I paid nothing to do that?
It's free service there. If you're a resident, say in one part of the state,
And one more question, Mr. Chairman, if I may. As far as the staffing of the library, refresh me, the librarian is a state employee. Who else is a state employee as far as a...
Only the staff at the Georgia Public Library Service are state employees. The people,
Your staff?
our staff
Okay.
at our agency.
But no librarian?
No librarians out in the public libraries.
Okay.
We provide grants based on the person that's, it tracks it tracks the state paid teachers.
Correct.
In concept, and so the grant will be given to the library for that state paid position, but that person is actually an employee of that local library.
Okay, thank you.
Under the purview of the library boards in that particular community.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Rogers. Yes. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't see your mic on, Chairman. Go ahead.
And I'm sitting in your normal seating rules.
I know. I guess I should pay closer attention, shouldn't I?
You mentioned fines, but you all also, I know the one in Columbus does, periodically will have a time where, everybody who has books out that they owe a fine on and this kind of stuff, they can bring it in and not be charged. What kind of total are we looking at as far as statewide on fines that are collected? Right.
It's a pretty modest part of the
I would think so, yeah.
That's annually reported to us, but I can certainly get it for you.
Yeah, I don't think it's much, but I'll tell you, these libraries are a tremendous resource. I mean, tremendous.
Chairman Smith, I couldn't agree more. Mr. Beach, do you have anything further? Well, we certainly appreciate you. Members of the committee, that will conclude today's actual presentations. Take a look at this MR&R. I think what we're being told is that there's just not an appetite for building new buildings with the changes in electronic and that kind of thing. But like you said, we have these great resources here in the state of Georgia. The ones are public librarians, and the work that the state libraries have done is not something that we want to allow to go south on us in any way. And it strikes me, not only all the jobs, but if you look, you got a state contribution. I mean, if we did every single one of these, it would be a $2 million piece in the bonds. But you're probably touching half of the counties in Georgia, at least on here. So we can certainly get a lot of bang for our buck. Just think about this, and maybe a recommendation forthcoming on how we may be able to do something along the lines of these major repairs and renovations, especially with the jobs that would be a part. That's hundreds of jobs just in that right there, a very local. I would think 5 on these, since they're. I don't want to do 20-year bonds for 5-year roofs. Somebody might say something to me about that. All right. Any other questions, members of the committee? The rest of what we have. I do not yet know when I want to call a meeting next week. As you know, we've talked through and had the Chancellor University system. We've had the technical colleges. We've had the Georgia Student Finance, and now we've had the ancillary attached agencies that are part of our budget units. Is there anything else that you'd like to hear from? I had told you. I want to make sure everybody understood when I said I didn't want a parade of presidents coming through here. It's not that I didn't want the presidents to come here. I felt like they were busier than they needed to. If you'll remember, in the past, sometimes we've had kind of a command performance for every university president to have to come down here and beg for a project. I just didn't find that real seemly. I don't mind them advocating. I just didn't want to put them in that spot either. I think you all know how the process works. They advocate to the individual legislators. They come to the speaker, the budget committee, and we talk those through. So what I anticipate, unless you members of the committee want to have another meeting for separate hearings, let's continue to discuss. If you have specific items on the bond side of the package, come see me. We'll sit down and talk about those individually. Any comments towards that? Anybody want to do something different here from anybody else? Yes, sir. Representative Yates. It's your
people here that represent the programs. I mentioned about this thing down in Griffin County.
The Griffin food pack.
You said bring it up later.
I actually already put it on the list. Well, I already put it on the list.
Yeah. Already on the list.
That program's doing real well.
Yeah. Okay.
It's on the list. You and I can sit down and talk about it. I like that program. So does the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. Chairman England said he liked that program.
We did a project. They did a project down at the Chick-fil-A and some lemonade deal or whatever, and we got the president of the company and tried to get him interested in things that he wouldn't make.
Okay, well,
They even promised to put his Chick-fil-A name up
hey,
so that people on the highway could read it.
sounds like you need to go talk to those Chick-fil-A cows. You need to work on that.
When are you going to have the budget finalized?
What I'm hearing, I talked to Chairman England today. He said he was looking at about 2 weeks to ask us for a final recommendation. So we have a little bit of time. So members can take a look at these if you got any idea. I'd love to hear some feedback on that 1% program too, just individually if you'll come to me, and on these MRR and anything we can do for Georgia Public Broadcasting. Have you looked at that application? I watched on my iPad some of those high school football games, and they spread it out around the state, and it's well done, and they do it with nothing. So I certainly wish we could do something to support that. We'll see what we can do. Any ideas would be much appreciated. With that, let's see. I thought I saw Dr. Papp come in. It wasn't a command performance, but do want to recognize our university presidents when they do come in. Dr. Papp, we're glad to have you here. So, meeting adjourned. Thank you.